As a constitutional law attorney, Jenna Ellis believes in the rule of law and the importance of integrity in our elections. And she's ready to tackle the big cultural and legal issues facing America. This is the Jenna Ellis Show. Here is your host, Jenna Ellis.
Good morning. It is February 1st. Happy February. House Republicans have taken another step towards impeaching Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas for presiding over the nation's ongoing immigration crisis. This coming from National Review. In the early hours of Wednesday morning, the House Homeland Security Committee voted 18-15 along party lines to send 2 articles of impeachment against Mayorkas to the House for a vote. The full House vote could take place as soon as next week, and if the House approves the impeachment resolution, the charges would ultimately go to the Senate for a trial. We learned how that went with the 2 impeachments of Donald Trump. So because of that, this, according to CBS, House Democrats are characterizing the impeachment effort as a quote-unquote sham and said the articles lack evidence of high crimes or misdemeanors, the constitutional basis for impeachment. The first impeachment article accuses Mayorkas of repeatedly violating the law by allowing the release of migrants who are awaiting court proceedings. The second article alleges Mayorkas lied to lawmakers about whether the southern border was secure and obstructed congressional oversight of the department. So joining me now to discuss all this and more is our very good friend, Congressman Jim Jordan. Good morning, sir. And I think that the second article kind of speaks for itself about the southern border not being secure. But what can we expect from the full House vote, and when will this take place?
I think as early as next week, and I think you'll see Republicans support this and send the articles of impeachment to the Senate for Secretary Mayorkas. Look, it's breach of public trust and failure to comply with the law. It's pretty basic, and you can just look at the situation and say, well, he's not enforcing the law. And then the breach of public trust is the number of times that you step back and think about the number of times Secretary Mayorkas has come in front of Congress and misled the Congress and therefore misled the American people on things he has said relative to the situation on our southern border. So Chairman Green and his committee have done good work. We'll have it on the floor and pass it. But I think this is one of like 3 key things that has to happen if we're ever going to get our border back under control. And you got to pass this. I think that sends a huge message and says this guy's done, these 2 articles represent what's happened here. Second, attack the spending bill and say you can't use taxpayer money to continue to allow people in the country. And I think it's a simple sentence. No money can be used to process or release in the country any new migrants. It's time for a timeout. Just no, stop. We're on pace to get to 12 million. And then finally, third, maybe most important is we got a big election coming in 10 months. And let's make sure President Trump is back in the White House, someone who actually did secure the border just 3 years. And, think of the difference between now and 3 years and 12 days ago when President Trump was still in office.
Yeah, and President Joe Biden has said this past week that he's done all that he can do on the border, and I think that's ridiculous. Your response to that falsehood? Well,
yeah, he's done all he can do to create the crisis because it's been intentionally, deliberately, willfully done. Go to the day one when they said no, 3 policy decisions they made. No more remain in Mexico, no more building the wall, and when you get here, you will be released. Well, when you do those things and announce those things and everyone knows that's what's happening, the incentive to come is this overwhelming, and it's why we've had over 8 million come to the country. We're on pace to get to 12 million. I tell people, think of the magnitude of that number. That's equivalent to the entire population of Ohio, and we're the 7th largest state. So that's how big the problem is, and people come from 180-some different countries. So they created this thing. So for him to say that, it's laughable if it wasn't so serious.
Yeah, and I think it's so disrespectful to the American people and to say that he's done all he can do. Meanwhile, the ongoing border war with Texas and trying to say that they can come onto public property and private property and cut down the razor wire and the Biden administration seems like they're doing all they can do to facilitate migrants coming over the border instead of protecting our border.
Yeah, that'd be another policy writer language that I would want on the. Understand the funding for the government; those are coming due in the first week of March. The two bills that are going to fund the government. So I would say on those bills, you need to attach the language I just talked about. No money can be used to process or release in the country any new migrants. And I'd also say no taxpayer dollars can be used to dismantle any border security measures that the states have taken. So you can't be saying we're going to pay people, the federal taxpayers are going to pay to tear down the fence that the Texas taxpayers put up. That's just stupid. So those kind of things, I think, are what we should be trying to get on the legislation, the spending legislation that's due in March.
And so where, Congressman Jim Jordan, is the Republican conference in this? Because we know it's a very slim majority, and I think that Speaker Johnson is doing a great job in terms of trying to coalesce that whole conference. I mean, are Republicans across the board on board with this type of resolution?
I don't know. I'm hopeful we can be. I mean, we want H.R. 2, the immigration enforcement border security legislation that we passed last year out of the House that sits in the Senate. We want that to become law. But I think we're at a moment where the country is so focused on this issue, understands how serious it is across the country. All 50 states now appreciate the problem that we have on the border and this unsecure border. I think you got to be so basic, so straightforward with what you do. Call a timeout. No more migrants should come in the country who are seeking asylum. Regular visa holders, that's a different animal, but that's a different issue. But the people seeking asylum, we should say we're going to call timeout on that. And the way to do that is the language I just described. So I think it's a simple way to do things.
Well, and some critics of the impeachment against Secretary Mayorkas have suggested that even if this goes through, and it would obviously take a couple of months to once the full articles of impeachment then go to the Senate for a trial, and even if that is successful and he's removed, then Biden would just replace him with somebody just as derelict. And so why not go after Joe Biden rather than just one of his deputies?
Well, fair enough. And, we are in the process. We've been in this impeachment inquiry mode since we took the official vote, since the Speaker of the House announced it last fall. And we continue to do that investigation. We had a deposition earlier this week with Eric Schwerin, one of the business partners of Hunter Biden. We have Jim Biden scheduled for his deposition. We got another key person from the FBI who will be deposing next week. We have Hunter Biden scheduled for the end of this month. So we're going to continue that. We've approached this in a way that is consistent with the Constitution and in a fair way where we're getting the facts, and we're going to keep doing that. And then we'll decide as the House of Representatives if, in fact, we are going to move forward with articles of impeachment against the president.
And I say impeach them all because they've all been derelict, and I think there is a constitutional basis for impeachment of basically everyone in the Biden administration, including Joe Biden himself. But also the House Judiciary GOP Twitter posted this yesterday that 155 House Democrats voted today, this would have been yesterday, against deporting criminal migrants who commit Social Security fraud. They'd rather protect illegal aliens than our seniors. Retweet if you think that's insane. I retweeted it.
Yeah. Yeah, good. Thank you. That's just crazy. The position the left has taken, the Democrat Party has taken, the Biden administration has taken, just makes no sense. And I'm reminded of that line that Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders had in her response to last year's presidential State of the Union address, where she said the divide in America today is normal versus crazy. And this is a great example. It is crazy to say, well, if you commit Social Security fraud and you're an illegal migrant, you get to stay, no problem. Like, that's just a crazy position to have. But that's unfortunately where today's left and Democrat Party is.
And it seems like, Congressman Jim Jordan, that the House Democrats and Democrats as a whole and Biden's policy on all of the border stuff is really attempting to shift the makeup of America. And there are a lot of people that are very concerned about election integrity and the possibility about non-citizens voting this fall. Yeah. Is there anything from Congress that is going to be addressing that or assisting the states in addressing that?
Well, I think people are always concerned about the integrity of our election process. where states can, they have, I think, improved their election law. Like Georgia is an example where there's been changes made. Have to have the photo ID. So it's, in Wisconsin, we got the good court decision on how drop boxes are used there in that state. So there's been, I think, some decisions that are going to be helpful. But as you know, the Constitution says that states, and particularly the legislature in the respective states, determines the time, place, and manner of elections. And that's how we want to keep it. We don't want the federal government running elections. But and I think the other thing is we're all watching more closely now than ever on how this election process is going to work in 24. So I feel more comfortable than we did in the run-up to 2020 when there was this huge influx of mail-in voting and all the things that states did that I thought were done in an unconstitutional fashion when they changed some of their election laws.
Yeah, and I think this is something that we really do need to focus on as states. But you're right, there has been a lot of measures that have been taken in the past 4 years. And in just the last few minutes that I have with you, Congressman Jim Jordan, you are the chair of the Judiciary Committee, and you mentioned moments ago continuing that inquiry against Hunter Biden and some of these other things. Where do we sit with some of the things out of your committee?
Yeah, we, as I said, on the impeachment inquiry, we have some of the key depositions scheduled for this month, and we'll proceed with those and gather the facts, and then we'll make a decision on, do we file articles of impeachment? Potential articles, I think, could be obstruction, could be bribery, could be misuse of funds, could be, and there's a whole number of things that are potentially there. But I think we got to get all the evidence. I think the case is already compelling. But we need to go through that, and then we'll continue to work on this whole censorship effort and some of the more recent things we've discovered just on the front end of this investigation. What banks were doing, surveilling their customers' purchase information at the request of the government, looking for people who shopped at Cabela's or looking for people who did online transactions where in the message of that online transaction they talked about Trump or Patriot or MAGA. It's particularly frightening what we've just, again, we're on the early stage of this investigation, but we'll continue that as well into how these financial institutions, the information they're giving to the government at the government's request, and it looks like without any legal process, without any type of warrant.
Yeah, and it's incredible to see just the absolute ignoring of the Fourth Amendment and some of these other protections that citizens have from the Constitution. And these are in some of the early stages, and so it's important that we keep a majority in Congress so that these investigations can continue. Do you think that you might run out of time before November?
Well, our job is to do oversight, to do it in a way that's consistent with the Constitution, to get the facts. We've been pushing as hard as we can to get that done in a timely fashion. So we're not driven by the time. We're not driven by some predetermined objective. What we're doing is getting the facts there for the American people, and then we'll make a decision.
Okay, great. And last question for you as we're heading into the break. There have been a lot of speculation about maybe vacating the chair yet again. I think that's probably not a great idea. But overall, what have you thought of Speaker Mike Johnson?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I don't think that's what we need to do. And as you know, Mike is a good man,
yes.
solid man of faith, and just doing the Lord's work as the Speaker of the House. So God bless him. He's a good friend, and I think we should not be moving to have another speaker. I mean, for goodness sake. So let's support Mike and let's support and do what we told the American people we were going to do. I always say we make this job too difficult. What'd you tell the folks you're going to do when you ran for it? Let's go do that, and that's what we got to focus on.
I think there's a really good book with a similar title that's about that. Yeah. So Congressman Jim Jordan, and of course I'm speaking about your book, but thank you so much for doing what you said that you would do and for joining us. And we will be looking forward to the House vote as early as next week on the articles of impeachment. Continue to keep you in our prayers and everyone who is advancing the conservative cause and protecting our liberties on Capitol Hill. So thank you so much for joining me. We'll be right back. Throughout history, there are clear moments that define our nation's path, and now you can own a piece of that history. I'm thrilled to announce the official Newt Gingrich contract with America Coin from our friends at Legacy Precious Metals in partnership with Speaker Gingrich. This limited edition 1 ounce 99.99% silver coin commemorates the historic victory in 1994 when the Republican Party, under Speaker Gingrich's guidance, took control of Congress. The Newt Gingrich contract with America Coin also symbolizes the transformative political platform that led to the landmark achievements like the overhaul of the U.S. welfare system and the Balanced Budget Act. This is a limited edition coin that will sell out. So whether you're looking for the perfect gift or you want to own a piece of history, act fast before they run out. The Newt Gingrich contract with America Coin is more than an investment. It's a tribute to honest government and America. You can order it online at newtgingrichsilvercoin.com. That's newtgingrichsilvercoin.com and use promo code Jenna, that's JENNA, to get $10 off your purchase. Go to newtgingrichsilvercoin.com now. As you know, my friend Mike Lindell has a passion to help everyone get the best sleep of their life. He didn't stop by simply creating the best pillow. Mike created the Giza Dream bed sheets. They look and feel great, which means an even better night's sleep for me, which is crucial for my busy schedule. Mike found the world's best cotton. It is ultra soft and breathable, but extremely durable. Mike's Giza sheets come with a 60-day money-back guarantee and a 10-year warranty. The Giza Dream sheets come in a variety of sizes and colors. Mike's latest incredible deal is the sale of the year. For a limited time, you will receive 50% off the Giza Dream sheets. You will also receive a set for as low as $29.98. So go to mypillow.com, click on the radio podcast square, and use the promo code Jenna. There you will find not only this amazing offer, but also deep discounts on all MyPillow products, including the MyPillow 2.0 mattress topper, which I have and I love, the MyPillow kitchen towel sets, and now even flannel sheets and so much more. We definitely need flannel sheets for as crazy as all of this weather has been lately. So go to mypillow.com and make sure you use the promo code Jenna or call 1-800-564-8475. That's 1-800-564-8475 and use the promo code Jenna. Welcome back. And as we continue to follow the crisis on the border, the invasion on the border, and all of the migrants that are coming through, the impending impeachment against Secretary Mayorkas, and everything that is going on, a lot of people are very concerned about the threat of non-citizens voting this fall. And as Congressman Jordan alluded to in the last segment, there needs to be something that is done about that. And there is a lot that is going on still in the realm of election integrity. And so to talk about this more, joining me now is Cleta Mitchell, who is an attorney and a senior legal fellow at the Conservative Partnership Institute and the founder of the Election Integrity Network. She also hosts a weekly podcast called Who's Counting that explores all topics related to election integrity. So good morning, Cleta, and thanks so much for joining me. I've been looking forward to this for a while, so I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Jenna. It's great to be with you.
So this whole issue and the threat of non-citizens voting, let's start there. How big of a threat is this?
Well, it's a huge threat because of court decisions, and including the U.S. Supreme Court, and actions that Congress has taken over the last 30 years, basically. Congress passed a law 30 years ago, last year. Remember, it was Bill Clinton's number one priority when he became president. It was the first bill. You notice that whenever the Democrats take over Congress or state legislature, the first thing they do, the first bill is always something to do with political process, elections. They want to change the rules for elections to try to manipulate the process so that they can have a better chance to win. And that happens. We see that pattern repeating itself over and over again. But remember the motor voter bill that was passed in Bill Clinton's, like I say, it was H.R. 1 when he was first elected president, and it requires states to register people to vote when they come in to get a driver's license or register a car, or any interactions with the DMV. The federal law requires states to offer the opportunity to register to vote. And that's true also for social service agencies. So when people go to the welfare office to sign up for food stamps or public assistance, they're required, states are required under this federal law to get the opportunity to register to vote. What that has morphed into, quite frankly, in far too many states, is that at the DMVs, they're just registering people. And even though there's a requirement that in many states it's required that you have to be a United States citizen in order to be able to register to vote, we have seen in state after state after state over the last number of years people who check a box saying, I'm not a U.S. citizen, but they get registered to vote anyway, and their registrations are sent over from the DMV to the election offices, and they get registered. And once registered, it is virtually impossible. It is impossible to keep those individuals from voting. And we've seen in many states now, Georgia, for instance, even though the Georgia law requires that you have to be a U.S. citizen to register to vote, there's no action being taken at the DMVs. And in fact, they have in Georgia what's called an opt-out process. So someone who goes to the DMV to get a driver's license or register a car, they are automatically registered to vote, even if, unless they say, oh, no, don't register me. So they're automatically registered, and that's something the left has been pushing for a long time. So now they're on the rolls, and they have a driver's license. Does the driver's license indicate that they're not a citizen? Many states don't have any such notation that makes it clear. Even in the states that have a requirement for a government-issued photo ID to vote, you have a lot of states that are issuing driver's licenses to illegals, and they can present those, and it doesn't show any indication that they're not a citizen, and so they can vote. And many states like North Carolina, for instance, and Michigan and others, allow student IDs to be used as the photo ID for voting. Well, you can be a foreign student and not a U.S. citizen, and you get a student ID. So there's so many ways that non-citizens are getting registered, particularly by these left-wing NGOs or advocacy groups, that it's a very real threat, and it's because Congress has not had they have not made sure that the laws are very porous, and Congress needs to take some action to tighten up some of these federal laws that make it very difficult for states to be able to ask people to present proof of citizenship in order to register to vote, and a number of things like that. It's a pretty big problem, but I suppose the Supreme Court didn't realize that we were going to be invaded our southern border within 10 years after saying that states could not. The Supreme Court ruled that states could not ask people to present documented proof of citizenship in order to use the federal form to register to vote. So there are just a lot of ways into the system, Jenna. It's a big problem.
It is, and this has been a big problem for a while. I mean, I think that there's been a heightened emphasis in the last few years on election integrity, but people like you, like our friends from Heritage, Hans von Sparovsky, for example, and others that are part of your election integrity network have been working on this for a while, and it does seem like it's this push is from all of the left wing and the Democrats. Election integrity should not be a partisan issue. This shouldn't be a Republican versus Democrat, and this isn't about suppressing the vote. This is about ensuring that laws are followed. And so there's so much rhetoric, Cleta, from the left that challenges election integrity on the right and tries to accuse people like you of saying, well, you just want to make it harder for people to vote. How do you respond to that?
I don't want to make it harder for people to vote. If they're eligible and qualified, if they're a U.S. citizen, if they're a non-felon, if they meet state law requirements with regard to the address they use for their registration. It's just that the legislature, let's start with the fact that the legislatures have the constitutional responsibility to determine the time, place, and manner of elections. And it's up to the legislature to decide what the qualifications are. And what has happened, what the left has done, is they have taken the view, they take the position that unless you basically bring the ballot box to somebody's front door, and actually they want to make it possible for people to vote at home. One of the very first people appointed by Biden was the woman who's the national president of the National Vote at Home Institute. They want to take all voting outside accountability and oversight and transparency. But I just always say when they say, well, you're a vote suppressor, I say, I want to make certain that it is easy to vote, but hard. We might make it harder for people to cheat. And I happen to believe that there are a lot of leftists in this country who really, they don't want any requirements. They want automatic registration so that if you're on a government list for anything, you're automatically registered, even though that will create mass chaos in the registration rolls. They basically believe that voter registration, I testified before Congress in 2001. So this is 23 years ago. I testified before Congress on the Help America Vote Act about ensuring, this was after the Florida election in 2000 with President Bush and Al Gore. And so Congress passes the Help America Vote Act to change all the voting systems. And I testified before Congress about the importance of making sure that whatever changes in the law Congress undertook to be sure to protect the integrity of the election. And I didn't realize until that testimony at that hearing, House Judiciary Committee, Maxine Waters and Barney Frank both yelled at me and told me from the dais that voter registration is racist. Requiring people to register to vote before they're allowed to vote, and even having voter rolls, that makes that if you support that, then you're a racist. And so that was 23 years ago. And so I basically pay no attention to anybody accusing me of anything. I had a conversation with one journalist. I use that term very loosely, and I really shouldn't even talk to them anymore. I really don't talk to them anymore because they've become political actors. They're not objective journalists. But you remember in Harris County, Texas, in 2020, the Harris County heavily Democratic board supervisor of elections, who was successfully removed for the chaos, and that's Houston, decided to allow 24-hour drive-by voting so that people could bring their ballots at 2 and 3 in the morning and drop them. And of course, the legislature of Texas said, well, we didn't authorize that. And so they put a stop to it. But I had this journalist argue with me about that, say, well, but that's vote suppression, isn't it, to say people can't drop off a ballot at 2 in the morning? I said, where did that come from? This idea that you ought to be able to vote at 2 in the morning. I said, what good comes? What good things are happening at 2 in the morning with the ballots? Tell me that. But it's
amazing
we've
that
thought about it for years.
Yeah, and it's amazing. And I'm speaking with Cleta Mitchell, who is a senior legal fellow at the Conservative Partnership Institute and founder of the Election Integrity Network, and does great work on election integrity. And I've been a part of your group for years, Cleta, and I so appreciate all the work that you do. But it seems like the left just doesn't want any rules at all. And if they want any rules, they want to manipulate the rules so that the outcome is that they win. And that's completely against fundamental fairness. It's against process. And so has there been any movement forward and any good news, I suppose, in the effort for election integrity to kind of rein in all of that nonsense over the last few years?
Well, there really has been. I mean, one of the things that really is so inspirational to me are the number of citizens who become involved and actively engaged in the work to protect our elections. Since 2020, I think that was a big wake-up call for people to realize, oh my gosh, the voting system, the election system has been fundamentally transformed right under our noses, and we really didn't pay attention to that. So there's so many people who have become engaged in doing things like working to get their voter rolls in their local counties cleaned up and getting bad registrations, duplicates, people who are dead, people who have moved away, people who are convicted felons or have otherwise become ineligible, declared mentally incompetent, had guardianships appointed, to go to their election offices and have those people, those registrations that are no longer valid or maybe weren't valid in the first place, have those removed from the voting rolls. And of course, that's just one area of work. There are people working on how to protect vulnerable voters. I would contend, Jenna, that many of these illegals who've been brought across the border by these United Nations and these organizations, Catholic Charities, I hate to say it, is in one of the worst offenders in terms of sort of taking these illegals and dispersing them, leading them and planting them around the country, and who think nothing of getting these people registered to vote, getting them on the voter rolls. Well, I would contend these are low English proficiency people. They may not even realize that when they're being asked to register to vote, so here, sign here, that they are committing a federal crime. It is against the federal law for a non-citizen to register to vote or to vote. And so I think that these are vulnerable voters, whether you're in a nursing home or you have these illegals that are being led around by leftist organizations, people in group homes, homeless people. You think about those vulnerable populations, man, the left sees those as pockets of votes. If they can just take over and get them registered and deliver their votes, get them registered at the offices, for instance, of an advocacy organization. And lots of things like that. But we have people working on that. We have people who are working on their state legislatures and the state laws and working to try to enforce and strengthen their state laws. And, of course, the left goes crazy and says these are voter suppression laws. But they're not. Citizen volunteers are finding the problems in their election laws and going to their state legislatures and asking legislators to make changes. But it's a lot of work because the left is very well funded in this arena. Capital Resource Center estimates the left has raised and spent between $11 and $14 billion since 2012 and upending and changing our election laws. We're never going to have their money. We're not going to have all those groups that they have that sue every legislature in every state that changes a law. And so then we have to fight about it in the courts. But what we do have is we have thousands and thousands of patriots who want to do something to protect our election system because they know that when we let them change the election system, it changes the outcome of the elections and it changes the policies of our country.
And it fundamentally transforms the country, as we're seeing. And I'm speaking with Cleta Mitchell, who's the senior legal fellow at the Conservative Partnership Institute and founder of the Election Integrity Network. And Cleta, there are so many people listening that are very concerned about election integrity, and they have been concerned about this for a while. And so what is the best way that you would encourage them to engage in the process in their state? Because as you mentioned, we may not have the money, but we do have grassroots volunteers and people who are very concerned citizens that are willing to participate.
Well, I would urge everybody to go to the website that we created. It's www.whoscounting.us. That's WHOSCOUNTING, whoscounting.us, as one of my colleagues says. It's Who's Counting Us. But on that website, you can sign up to become part of an election integrity coalition in your area, in your state. But there's the Citizens Guide. I wrote 2 years ago, we updated it last year, the Citizens Guide to Building an Election Integrity Infrastructure. And that's really what we need. We need people to understand how they can get involved at the local level. Remember, all voting takes place at the local level, unless you live overseas, but that's a whole different problem. But we've created a master class of 20 videos. All of them are short, between 5 and 7 minutes, to how do you start a local election integrity class, a task force in your county or your city. We have a national working group. People can sign up to become part of that a national working group. We have on a lot of different topics. But we try to train people to give people the tools that they can use wherever they live to get 4 or 5 people together to just be a presence at the local election office or with the local election administrator. Trust me, If you're not there, guess who is there? There are all these leftist groups, and you would be surprised to learn that they're in every election office in America. And if we're not there, it's just like parents going to school board meetings, looking to see what's in your school libraries. If you're not there at the school board meetings and then watching what's going on in the schools, then that's how people have learned about the leftist dominance and influence and infiltration in the schools. It's the same story at election offices everywhere. And if you're not involved in your local election office, then you're leaving that, you're ceding that to the left. And I just think that it's really important for citizens and Christians to be engaged in that work if we're going to save our country. But all the tools you need are on the whoscounting.us website. So we really urge people to take advantage of those tools, get involved, get the Citizens Guide, get 5 or 7 of your friends, and start going to your election office and learning what's going on. And how did they screen for? Ask them, how do you screen to keep non-citizens from being registered? I think you'd be shocked and amazed and concerned to find out that they've not even thought about that because all the pressure is coming from the other side.
Wow. Well, Cleta Mitchell, really appreciate it. And the website is whoscounting.us. Get engaged and involved before the election instead of after, when we have to fight all of these court battles and other things. We need to affect the process and make sure the rules are fair up front. Throughout history, there are clear moments that define our nation's path, and now you can own a piece of that history. I'm thrilled to announce the official Newt Gingrich contract with America coin from our friends at Legacy Precious Metals in partnership with Speaker Gingrich. This limited edition 1-ounce 99.99% silver coin commemorates the historic victory in 1994 when the Republican Party, under Speaker Gingrich's guidance, took control of Congress. The Newt Gingrich contract with America coin also symbolizes the transformative political platform that led to the landmark achievements like the overhaul of the U.S. welfare system and the Balanced Budget Act. This is a limited edition coin that will sell out. So whether you're looking for the perfect gift or you want to own a piece of history, act fast before they run out. The Newt Gingrich contract with America coin is more than an investment. It's a tribute to honest government and America. You can order it online at newtgingrichsilvercoin.com. That's newtgingrichsilvercoin.com and use promo code Jenna, that's JENNA, to get $10 off your purchase. Go to newtgingrichsilvercoin.com now.